The Treasury Department is phasing out its use of paper checks for Social Security payments at the end of the month. This will also impact the use of paper checks for veterans benefits and tax refunds.
If you still get your Social Security check in the mail, most people assume this only affects a small, unlucky group who'll get switched over automatically with no real impact. That's not quite right. There's one exception buried in the policy that could actually determine whether your payment keeps coming without interruption, and it's a detail getting a lot less attention than it deserves. I'll get to that in a few minutes because it might be the most important part of this video for you specifically. Here's the short version. Paper Social Security checks are being phased out, and unless you qualify for a specific exception, you'll need to switch to an electronic payment method this year. This comes from an executive order signed by the White House in March of 2025 called Modernizing Payments to and from America's Bank Account. The order itself came from the president, but the actual work of carrying it out, building the systems, processing the switches, handling the exceptions, falls to the Treasury Department and the Social Security Administration. That distinction matters because it tells you who to actually call when you have questions, and it's not the White House. The deadline for most federal payments was September 30th, 2025. Since then, the Social Security Administration has confirmed it intends to complete the full transition for every remaining beneficiary by the end of this year. If you're one of the fewer than 1% of beneficiaries, roughly 280,000 people nationwide still getting a paper check, this is already in motion for you specifically, not a future possibility. So why is the government pushing this so hard? Two real reasons, both confirmed by SSA and Treasury directly. First, security. Paper checks are 16 times more likely to be lost, stolen, altered, or returned as undeliverable than electronic payments. Second, cost. Each paper check runs the government just over $3 to print and mail, about 20 times more expensive than sending the same payment electronically. Multiply that across hundreds of thousands of checks every month, and the math explains why this became a priority instead of staying optional. This isn't isolated to Social Security either, which is worth knowing because it tells you how permanent this is. The IRS is applying the same executive order to tax refunds, phasing out paper refund checks for individual filers starting with this year's filing season. Other agencies, Veterans Affairs, the Office of Personnel Management, and several others have been folded into the same shift, each on their own timeline, but under the same underlying order. It's one coordinated, government-wide change, not a pilot program limited to Social Security that quietly gets reversed if enough people push back. Now here's the question almost everyone in this situation asks first. How do I even know if this affects me? Simple answer. If your monthly payment already lands directly in a bank account or already loads onto a Direct Express card, you're already on an electronic payment method, and none of this requires you to do anything. This entire video only applies to you if a paper check is still what physically shows up in your mailbox. But there's another question that matters just as much, and most coverage of this topic skips right past it. What actually happens if you don't do anything before the deadline? The SSA has been direct about this. They are actively reaching out to remaining paper check recipients to encourage the switch specifically to avoid disruption. If you haven't made arrangements by the time your account comes up for conversion, the realistic outcome isn't that your benefit disappears, it's that your payment could be delayed while your payment method gets updated on their end, and you may be asked to provide updated information before it resumes. That's disruptive and stressful, especially if that check is your primary income, but it's not the same as losing the benefit itself, and I don't want to overstate it. The SSA has also been clear separately about why they're pushing this timeline. They've repeatedly noted that lost or delayed paper checks can leave beneficiaries waiting weeks for a replacement to be issued and mailed out again. That's the exact scenario an electronic payment method avoids entirely. There's a version of this exact problem already playing out on the IRS side, and it's worth mentioning because it shows what delay actually looks like in practice rather than in theory. Earlier this year, members of Congress pushed the IRS for answers after a large number of taxpayers received a specific notice sent whenever a return is processed, but the refund can't go out electronically because banking information is missing or outdated. Those taxpayers weren't denied their refund. They were paused mid-process until their information got sorted out, and some waited considerably longer than they expected. That's the realistic shape of what not switching in time looks like for a federal payment under this policy, not a payment that vanishes, but one that stalls at exactly the moment you're depending on it. So here's what you actually do about it. Step 1. Check what you already have. Log into your My Social Security account at ssa.gov. Your payment method is listed right there. If it already says direct deposit or direct express, you're finished, no further action needed. Step 2. If you're still on a paper check, choose your electronic option. There are two, and it's worth keeping the enrollment path straight so you don't end up on hold with the wrong department. If you have a bank account, direct deposit is the simpler route. Set it up through your My Social Security account online, through Treasury's Go Direct website, by calling the Go Direct line, or by calling SSA directly and doing it over the phone with a representative. The second option is the Direct Express card, a prepaid debit MasterCard built specifically for federal benefit recipients without a bank account. Your monthly payment loads onto it automatically, and you use it exactly like a regular debit card at stores for bills or to pull cash from an ATM. There's no credit check and no minimum balance required to enroll. Enrollment for Direct Express runs through the same Treasury Go Direct program online at godirect.gov. If you're not sure which option fits your situation or how to get started, calling SSA is a good first step. Representatives there can point you toward the right enrollment channel. Step 3, and this is the part I promised at the start, the detail that's getting a lot less attention than it should. Treasury does allow waivers for people who genuinely cannot use electronic payments. This isn't a workaround, and it isn't something you have to argue your way into. It's a built-in accommodation that Treasury created specifically because they know a hard nationwide deadline doesn't fit everyone's actual circumstances. I want to be clear about something here, because I don't want this video to leave you more anxious than when you started. This isn't a system designed to trip people up. Both SSA and Treasury have said directly that they know some beneficiaries, older adults, people with disabilities, people without traditional banking access, need extra support making this change, and they've built the waiver process specifically for that. The goal is faster, safer payments for the vast majority, with a real exception path for the people it genuinely doesn't work for. One more thing that matters right now, while this transition is actively underway, scammers are using it. There are active warnings about calls and emails impersonating the SSA or Treasury, claiming your benefits will be cut off unless you verify your bank details immediately over the phone. Remember this one sentence: the Social Security Administration will never call demanding your bank information or threatening to cut off your benefits on the spot. If you know someone this applies to, a parent, a grandparent, a neighbor who's mentioned getting a check in the mail, send them this video today. It takes 10 seconds, and it could be what keeps their payment on schedule instead of caught in a preventable delay.